Yeah.
Right, explain. So,
Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah. I would have liked it. Oh, you go do that. Oh, so I guess.
You really don't want me to swear, don't ask me. So I think I need the city's expertise. It's once again, just. Yeah.
Everybody, it's 7 o'clock. Meeting to order. Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Yeah, Matt Bugera, Jamie Melton,
Here,
Kathy Macho,
here.
Nancy Rondell.
Here.
And Michael Behrman.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Great. Public comment, there's something that's not on our agenda tonight that you'd like to speak to us about. This is your opportunity. Say Adams.
Let's go over here. Hi, I'm Karen Adams. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a member of the Chamber Foundation Board, and we are asking that closing of State Street to be placed on the October 7th ballot or agenda. The current council set the Chamber Foundation to task in regard to the closure of State Street. So we're just asking for it to be on the October 7th agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment tonight?
Just a quick reminder for campaign signs or any signs at all, that they need to be either, they cannot be between the sidewalk and the curb. And if there's no sidewalk, they have to be 8 feet off the edge of the roadway. We have some that are in violation, and I'm hoping to do an article in the paper tomorrow, or for Wednesday to remind people. But if come Thursday night, Friday night, we're gonna clean some up, because I know on Summit Street, there's some, and it's a little bit of or not everybody, but there are some. And so if you have signs that are in the right of way, remember they can't be between the sidewalk and the curb. If there's no sidewalk, they have to be 8 feet off the edge of the roadway. So if you have any questions, call me, but I'm just a friendly reminder for the people on Zoom and anybody who's so, and hopefully I'll have an article available. And also, because 119 closed, we're monitoring Beaumont's Hill or 4th Street for not having a lot of tolerance on the speeds on that street, or up on the Bluff Drive Summit and Lake Street. So here.
If there's no curb, if say just a sidewalk, how far back do the signs have to be?
If there was like a sidewalk next to the roadway,
Yeah,
yep, then it would just be like 8 feet from the edge of the roadway. Back.
so 8 feet.
Yep.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the time.
Anyone else? Anyone on the computer tonight?
There's about 8 people. And those that are watching via Zoom we do have some camera difficulties, so you may not see the image, but the microphones are working.
Is that not working?
It's going in and out. It's probably because of the connection.
I guess we'll go right into the consent agenda. Any issues tonight? No? Motion to approve the consent agenda,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
second. All in favor? Oh, wait, I gotta do roll call.
Roll.
Never mind.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
And Matt Rivera.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Yeah,
All right, the first item on the agenda is a request by Mr. Ed Demmer to install a stairway in Shea Park, or some steps on Shea Park, straddling the border between his property and Shea Park's property, or the city's property at Shea Park. The steps, I'll get one of their renderings out shortly, but the steps would allow them to access their property to the east, as well as then they're proposing a potential pathway or sidewalk that could the public residents could use to get to the rest of Shea Park, such as going to the boat or the center of the park or the locomotive. I think there's a few issues for council to decide. I think the first one is the most important, which is whether or not the city should give Mr. Demmer the ability to install stairs on city property with the intent of partly benefiting his property to access his property, as well as considering that proposing a sidewalk to go through Shea Park. Some of you were on council, but back in 2021, the city and Mr. Demmer came to an agreement. For several years, Mr. Demmer's, well, for many years, decades probably, Mr. Demmer's driveway, part of his driveway and some of his landscaping was on or is on the city property, Shea Park. And we came to an agreement that he recognized that is the city's property and we own the property, but that we continue allowing to have his landscaping there unless there was an emergency or urgent need for the city to do something there, which we didn't foresee at all, but that's basically the agreement we came to. So these steps would be outside of that area where we have that agreement for. Second, council should consider is, what is the best interest of the park and the public at large? In the we had some previous council meeting and parks meetings and planning commission meeting, we had some general conversations about potentially having pathways or a pathway or some sort of master plan for Shea Park. And we don't have those finalized plans, but there has been some intention to have some sort of pathway at the park, at least to lead to the boat and or the locomotive. And then finally, the other issue is just reminding the city of our donation policy, which states that this could be considered a donation potentially because he's proposing to put staircase on city property and a sidewalk that leads to the park and throughout the park. That is the proposed donation in line with the city's goals and city's plans. Of course, we don't have any concrete plans for sidewalks there, but we've had some ideas and discussions about it. But my recommendation is to really discuss that first issue about whether or not to even allow Mr. Demmer to have steps there, because what those steps look like and what the pathway may look like could be a parks discussion and planning commission discussion. We don't want to take it to Parks and Planning unless we know that whether or not the council is willing to entertain allowing this. I'll let Mr. Demmer or his representative speak, but I'll also put some of the pictures they have of what the proposed staircase would look like. This is a hill from Main Street. And then there's a here, let me get that. So this would be from a bird's eye view here. This where my cursor is Mr. Demmer's property. Right here is some of the existing, I guess like where the agreement we have with them. This is that area that is on city property, but Mr. Demmer has landscaping, et cetera, and I think they're redoing that landscaping. And this is the stairways right here. This is the steps down from Main Street to Shea Park, and this is the beginning of the path that will lead to Shea Park. Again, this is existing conditions before the construction. Yeah. Mr. Demmer, if you want.
Yeah, can you go back to the slide? You can go back to the landscape slide. Right here, perfect one. You were perfect.
This one or the one?
But this is fine. Originally, our landscape architect wanted to put some landscaping in this area, which is owned by the city. And so she contacted Rachel to see what her idea was about it. And Rachel liked the idea, and then she asked us if we'd be willing to put some steps into Shea Park along with a walk going to the boat. And so that's where the steps and the walk came into play. So we thought that'd be a nice idea, and so we agreed to do that. So, but our main objective was to put some landscaping in this area. But we'd be more than happy to put in a walk and steps going down to Shea Park.
I might say one other thing, Victor, to the existing steps, they are not going to be used at all. You understand that? So it's a brand new stair system, but we don't need it in effect because we're putting stairs on the east side, which are totally within our rights to do. But this is just totally for the city to use. It's not necessarily for the Demmer. So it's really an altruistic, in my opinion, nice thing to do for the city to get people down in the park. And it's not, and to make it look better, you know, to make it look nicer. So that old step system, and I'm missing because I'm understanding what you said is not going to be used at all. So that's gone. Right? Is that kind of clear to everybody? So it's not two sets of steps going down to the same place. That makes sense. And that's what's shown there would be the public steps for the people to come down into Shea Park, and then there would be actually a sidewalk down in Shea Park to go over to the boat.
So the proposal is to landscape this area on city property.
Yes.
Is that where the old steps are? Right now,
Just to the west of that.
to the west of that hydrangea, that green
To the west of
hydrangea.
the,
bulb? Okay.
You know, just 5 feet, 6 feet.
But at the bottom of the new steps, would there be an entrance to your house at the bottom?
We would like to put maybe some stepping stones for the steps, but
So yeah, there would be a path leading to a gate to their.
So that would be gated then?
yes.
And the other
Directly to the house.
Yeah.
It's going to go directly to the house, it goes in, green space, or behind that.
But that's all on city property then, the stepping stones and all that.
Victor, can you point out where the property, I'm a little confused where the property line actually is. The one that runs north to
I
south.
believe it's right, this black line right here.
Oh, I can't see
Can't see
your,
where you are with that.
I
Yeah,
can't see
let me
your,
zoom out a little bit. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's this black line just running up right here. This,
yeah,
Yes, that's it.
that's the exhibit.
oh, on this side, okay.
And so everything right here is on city property.
Okay, okay. So I'm understanding you gentlemen correctly. The reason for this is because of your desire to do additional landscaping on city property. You really weren't concerned about the stairs particularly.
No, Rachel brought the stairs up.
Okay, okay. I was not aware of that.
So,
We thought it'd be a good idea. We liked the idea, so, but it's. Yeah, but our first desire is to put the landscaping in.
Got it. Thank you.
Everything,
Hmm? Yeah, it's nice.
a twist.
What's the?
The landscaping would be, kind of just a donation to the tree thing, I guess. Plant a tree with, but they'd like it set up the way they would like it. And redoing the steps, I'm guess I'm not opposed if it fits into the park.
Yeah, one of my hesitations, I know at planning commission, we talked about this a lot. And I think we talked about it here too, how we really wanted overall plan for the park before we did anything else. Because we talked with the Historical Society about where to put the locomotive and pathways and agreed on the
Right.
position of the locomotive. But we haven't really, parks and planning haven't really come up with a plan for the park. So I'm hesitant to put something like a set of steps there when that might not be at all where they want. Or where the plan would have.
Yeah, we were pretty
We were pretty.
adamant
we
about,
were.
coming up with a plan, especially for that park in
Mhm.
particular. When the discussion regarding sidewalks and such came up, so.
I mean, I think a donation of landscaping is lovely, don't hear me wrong, but I think that we could speak to that much better once the plan for the park was in place. And then if Demers wanted to donate a tree or something in the park where we had put the landscaping, that would be lovely. But for them to dictate where the landscaping is and a set of steps, which is a really pretty permanent fix before we have a plan, makes me a little uneasy to do that.
I think where the Parks Board at least was with the plan too, it wasn't a walkway that went all the way through the park. It was just one that connected the Shea locomotive to the AHA. And then kind of went back, and like the access point was from Bay Street.
I don't know if we've talked about an access I don't think we've talked about an access point from Maine or Gardner or any or John, I guess.
Well, I mean, if in the grand scheme of that park, that's what the Parks Board really wanted and pieced it all together, but I don't certainly feel comfortable speaking on that. Is there any public comment? Or
Ann Mulder, Chair of the Parks Board and resident. I can just add to what Jamie said. We have had some discussions that have come pretty far along, and it has mostly had to do with most visitors arriving from Bay Street, coming from downtown or coming from the east, or coming down Judd Hill, and then having kind of like a interpretive little welcome area with flower beds by the locomotive there. And then I think everybody's had this little reaction to, we don't want to just start throwing things in the park. And I think that's where the whole idea of being a master plan came from. But then connecting the locomotive with a little interpretive path up to the AHA. The feeling on Parks Board so far, and I don't think I'm wrong, Jamie, you correct me, but is to minimize hardscape at the park. We had discussed about at some point, maybe looking back on the fact that, the park used to be the location for the waterworks. We might have some type of, this would be our first, art sculpture in a park, but something with pipes and things like that that kids could also climb on. And actually the spot we had looked at for that would be sort of where the stairs come down So I don't know, I think we need to talk about a lot more. We had never discussed stairs coming down from Main Street. And it wasn't my understanding that Rachel suggested it, so that was news to me.
No, she did.
Suzanne?
Hi, I'm Marie Wayman, I live on East Third Street, and I think it's a lovely proposal, and I hope that there's more discussion. I think that an entrance from Main Street would be very welcoming and very attractive. So I hope that in the master plan, some of the proposals that are here tonight could be considered and really consider an entrance from Main Street. In my view, my personal view, that height that is such a barrier going into the park on Main Street is an eyesore. There should be some welcoming stairway going from Main Street down into the park. So I hope that that gets kind of woven into. Thank you.
I could add one more thing. I think another concern would be, we're trying to make the parks as ADA compliant as possible. And so I don't think we're gonna have some kind of switchback walk coming down from Main Street. There's that aspect as well.
Lucas has his hand raised on. So Lucas,
Hi, it's Lucas. I think, Victor, if you were to scroll down to the next slide where it shows labeled Demard West Side as proposed. I believe this is what they have approval to do with the site plan that was submitted to the Planning Commission. And as you can see, the area of that wall behind the kind of where the existing steps are currently, they would redo those existing steps. And if you go to the next one, you can see that the reason that, I mean, they have permission to put a set of steps in where they currently are, I believe. So the new design with the set of steps moved farther to the west allows them to add the vegetation, which then screens that wall, which is all white in the previous slide. So that's kind of, I believe, where this kind of comes from. It's to kind of soften up that concrete wall that is there with some nice vegetation. That's the way I see it, and I believe they do have permission to redo the existing steps as it is. It looks like it's kind of a compromise to move the steps into the park a little bit farther, add the public access to the park, the pathway to be determined later, but also providing and softening up the structure that is behind the steps.
Thank you. So, yeah,
Carol Winard, 141 Schneider Street. I guess I've got a question is, two questions. One is, how many feet beyond their setback are they requesting to be able to come into the park? Because they can't tell from the drawing. But also, do we have other places in the city where homeowners have been able to put landscaping incorporated into their property that's actually on city property?
you have it, Mr. Demmer, you guys have how many feet this is, how wide?
From the lot line to where the sidewalk would be. Like where your lot line is, to where the sidewalk is. It's ever.
About 30 feet. It's rough estimate.
It's a drive.
It's beyond where the.
Like it's over.
It's about 15 feet. I can scale it off and get the question for you. later.
but about 15 feet into the city property?
Yes, like that.
And do we have other ones in the city where we allow the homeowners to incorporate landscape on the city property?
No, not that I know of. We do have, like, we allowed, cedar hedges in the right of way, but people call them, but not on city. Not that I know of on city parks.
Yeah, there's. All over town, there's places where there's hedges and plants in the right of way. Yeah, actually do a landscaping projects. I don't think that's, at least in my time, it's never been approved. John?
John Wayman, Third Street, on the issue of ADA compliance. It's my understanding, of course, the city attorney is going to weigh in on this. As long as there is no barrier to the park area, and that would be Bay Street, then you don't have to deal with the issue of switchbacks and so on and stairways.
I guess my only question for Mr. Demmer is, it's the only one I can think of at the moment, is what's your time frame for needing this approval and what?
We can't get to the steps till spring of next year.
Okay,
We've contacted a few contractors. They were just.
okay.
Springtime, summertime.
Again, I'm gonna reiterate, I don't feel comfortable. You know. Unless Parks Board and Planning Commission, I think they need to look at it and make that recommendation and really determine how it fits with their grandiose plan for that park. And that's at least how I.
Yeah, again, we were just proposing the landscaping. And it was Rachel who wanted us to take a look at putting steps in the walk.
So we go for the landscaping as well, since it's on part of the property. Yeah.
Well, I guess, Victor said the first thing we need to decide is if we're open to the idea. And if we are, then we can ship it off to Parks and Planning. So I guess that would be our first decision for the night.
Would their recommendation then come back to us?
Yeah,
for
so,
approval?
yep, Parks Board would come up if they wanted to, they thought it was appropriate with a plan for Shea Park, if they felt that they needed a plan for that Shea Park, like with sidewalks and a stairwell and the landscaping. Then we go to Planning Commission for review, and then it would come back to council.
Okay, I mean, what kind of time,
Well, the Parks Board was tentatively on their agenda for tomorrow. So, depending on what council did today, yeah.
Okay,
So, it could, realistically, it would probably be, you'd figure it out, in midwinter, if the Parks Board had an idea to do something related to this.
The other piece of it too, and looking at donations, especially with the hardscape. Not just, the issue of benefiting the donor, and fitting into the city plans, there's also things in there regarding maintenance. Steps can be pretty treacherous in winter. If people attempt, and is it the city's then responsibility to keep those steps clear of ice and snow? There's other things to think of as well. That's also in the donation policy, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't like to say no before yes. And I think it's appropriate for the Parks Board and Planning Commission to consider these. That's just how
Right.
and the whole part of it, I would think, to add on to that. to be looking at not just the staircase, but the
The
landscaping.
landscape also, because it's on city property.
Right.
So I'm hearing people saying they're willing to send it to the boards and then
Yes.
take a look at it. when it comes back.
Okay, that's okay.
You don't need a motion on that.
No, it seems like we have consensus
Yeah,
to do that, so.
okay.
We'll kick it to the Parks Board and then they can discuss and decide and send it to the planning commission.
I guess one more question before we move on. Are you set on where the stairway location is? Or could it move?
No, this is, she left it up to the second, so the proposal.
Okay, because it might be better if it was located farther over.
Right, yeah, this was just,
Right.
I will say, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
You know, that is really generous.
the park is my neighbor, so.
Well, thank you very much. Truly.
Thank you.
A lot of documents in there.
At least from 1930.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, item B, Harbor Commission's proposed Ford Park improvements. So for the past several months, the Harbor Commission has been considering improvements to Ford Park to improve the user experience, especially in regards to circulation and safety, as well as loading and unloading. They've looked at, large, tentatively, they haven't looked at anything concrete, but they've talked about the ideas of large scale improvements, as well as minor improvements. And right now, one of their recommendations is settling on this quote unquote minor improvement, which is extending, and these red arrows are my drawings, so I'm not an artist, but these extending this driveway leading to the launch ramp to the north by a certain amount of feet. And Lucas, the DPW director, got some initial estimates based on the cost of doing the work, concrete work, cement work. And the estimates for widening the driveway to the north, depending on the amount of feet you would widen it by, varied from $6,500 for 6 feet to up to $15,000 for widening it by 12 feet. And then, of course, there'd be about $2,000 in costs to relocate electric lines as well as irrigation lines. The Harbor Commission's request was before they, decided on how many feet to go, 6 feet, 9 feet, or 12 feet. They really wanted to get our engineer's recommendation or plans for what it would, for how to navigate this radius. So how many feet, in the Harbor Commission's view, is how many feet we widen this out should also be dependent on what kind of turning radius should go there based on the larger trucks and trailers that have been using Ford Park. And so that's what they're looking for. And from council is, of course, council would be the one to, especially if it's being widened by 12 feet, to have to select the contractor to do this. So getting an engineer drawings should be council's decision. So we could go, again, with Lucas's rough estimate to do that, but the Harbor Commission would like to see an engineer.
Just coming up, does this come out of the waterfront fund?
This would come out of the waterfront.
What would be the approximate cost of the engineer,
For something like this?
Looking at this.
Yeah, for something such small like this, several $100s, $500-600. I'm not. Can't imagine it's more than a few hours. Or
Do we have any public comment? Carol, more kayak rides?
So we're just looking to authorize the engineers
authorize me to go to benchmark.
to go to benchmark.
Right, because I don't want to do engineering if also general sense if council is would want to entertain this project anyway, because if you didn't want to entertain this project, there's no sense for going to the engineer to waste, spend money on that.
I think it kind of goes back to, are they gonna come up with a plan for the whole park? Like, do we wanna just put this Band-Aid on it
Yeah,
before they take a look and decide what they actually wanna do for the whole park?
that was discussed. There was some healthy conversation at the Harbor Commission about that. And right now, their sense is to stay away from a major revamp of the park, at least for, 5-6 years. They want to get through the Harbor Master Building. And right now, as you'll see in our capital improvements plan, we're looking at potentially redoing water and sewer on Bay Street in 2030, maybe 2031. So we're talking about 6-7 years out from that project.
It could be, Ken.
It could be longer too, the way projects.
And
Yeah,
that is,
yeah.
people stop.
So they did talk about that.
It backs everybody up.
And there was some discussion at the Harbor Commission meetings relating to basically the fact that the size of vehicles that are going through the park and unloading boats is bigger. And so there's apparently quite a bottleneck in there and not room for 2 vehicles to pass. So that was the reason that in terms of all of the different things that could be done in that park, and they are looking at they do want to look at a bigger plan, but this was considered something that was, I won't say urgent, but something that was,
Maybe,
what's the breath?
high value,
Yes,
relatively low cost,
exactly.
immediate results, low hanging fruit.
And I think
That
that
term,
estimates
yes.
are fairly reasonable in the scheme of a big something.
Yeah.
And it would definitely help the traffic move better.
Yeah.
It would. So I think we should go ahead and get the drawing so we know how much more we need, how much wider it needs to be. Because everybody's just making guesses.
Right.
Our commission meeting.
Guess by consensus, again.
Do you need a vote?
Move forward.
And so if you guys have consensus.
No more than $600.
Okay, capital improvements plan. 3C, we are beginning our capital improvements plan process. Of course, traditionally, the way we approach capital improvements planning is we get our policy team together, which consists of staff and board and commission members and the mayor. And then we go through all proposed projects, we score them, and kind of order them in which year we think we can do or should do them or want to do the project. This year, just a little bit differently, just so council is a little more in the know and has an opportunity earlier in the process to have a say. Of course, you guys have a say anytime you want, but usually it's in November when you're looking at the plan, and then budget is in December, and it's sometimes feel rushed in examining the project. So giving it to you this early on, first lets you refamiliarizes you with the projects we already have on our list. We can show you some of the new projects that we're looking at, new purchases for the next 6 years. And then also gives you an opportunity to discuss if there's any other projects you'd like to see in the next 6 years, or some projects out here you really, really don't think, or you want more information about. So what we have, again, the CIP, this capital improvements plan is going to be from 2025 to 2030. It's a 6-year plan. It's not a budget. It's not how much money. We're not saying that in 2025 and 2026, we're approving the money to do those projects. We're just giving ourselves some sort of guideline on what projects need to happen when, so we can better organize ourselves and better predict costs going forward. And we've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's been very helpful in planning purposes. As a reminder, the CIP is also only for projects that are $10,000 and more. All the smaller item projects that are less than $10,000, staff will give me those to Nick and I for the budget, for the 2025 budget. You'll review those smaller projects. And those could be things like a few computers or cables or something that costs, whatever costs under $10,000. Projects over $10,000, this is a reminder for our purchase policy, anything between $10,000 and $40,000. We give you guys 2 quotes to select for, to choose from. Anything $40,000 or more, we go out to bid. And however many bids we get is select. Of course, I have the whole CIP, 2024 through 2029 CIP in here. I've included some, I've gotten input from DPW director, parks director, and the chief of police on potential new projects, as well as changing the years around for some projects, as well as removing some projects that they thought they could remove. And those are what you see here. There's, of course, again, a lot of these projects are dependent on finances, how much money we have, especially the desirable projects. You know, if we're talking about some of the parks projects, a lot of those are dependent on, you know, donations and grants. We tend to rely heavily on those for parks projects. Some of them for the water, sewer, electric, we're pretty solid, have a solid understanding of where our budget will be, you know, the next couple of years for those projects. So we know pretty well that we can do those projects in the years that we have. Of course, sometimes, like I said, projects do pop up and we push a project back a year or two, depending on the priority. Pretty self-explanatory, but if you have some questions, Lucas is on here too to answer some of them for the DPW's projects. But also I did put as a caveat here that, of course, costs are estimates. We know, we've gotten the trap before. We're like, oh, on the CIP, you know, 5 years ago, it said this project was going to cost $5,000. You know, it's an estimate, it's the best estimate at the time. I think prices have kind of stabilized, not completely, but a little bit for contractors. So we have a little better idea of what things will cost. But, you know, trying to predict what something will cost in 2030 is not always easy. But Chief Knight does it pretty well for his police vehicles. He always puts in a 3 to 5% increase, you know, every year for what the cost of vehicles. So, yeah. So I guess I'm just taking your comments. If you have any other projects that you want to look at, any other discussion you want to have on these, I think we could just have initial discussion. Then this will go to Planning Commission in November, and you'll see it again. Council will see it again as well.
I have a couple of things. Last year we talked about housing and the importance of, I'm not going to say affordable housing, across the spectrum, if there was anything the city could do to help with that. And I think we said we would talk about it again at this time of year in case we wanted to put aside any kind of money for it. I don't have any magic thing I'm looking at specifically. We do support the Housing North salary. We do that every year. And of course, we've been working on the zoning, which affects housing. But I guess I would like to know if there are any other things cities can do to possibly, whether that's land donations, money, tax incentives, if there's anything else that the city themselves can do that would help with that, or another organization that we should think about supporting.
We've had preliminary discussions with Housing North, looking at potential options, and some ideas that were floated around is the property we have on Pete's Run. There's a city parcel there where Pete's Run intersects Hoyt Street, and that's a potential parcel that you could, you know, potentially do, you know, put a house or do something there, or work with someone that's willing to do some sort of housing project there. But we haven't gone beyond just talking about it, because we don't have anything planned. But it's just been thrown out as an idea.
I guess my only question on this is this something that would necessarily be part of the capital budget, or would this be?
It could be if we build something.
I'm looking at you, Nick.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if we just spent 15, 20 grand to look at an option, nothing came to fruition, then it would just be a contracted service but if it actually produced a home or some sort of living arrangements, then yes, that would become a capital asset the city owns.
Okay, or it might be just a general fund expenditure.
Well, and I'm trying to clarify, and I know you got the two of the accountants in the room who were looking at capital assets, capital stuff. As a specific, for our capital improvements plan, what we really say is things that aren't ongoing expenses that are over $10,000.
Oh,
So
okay.
that, you know, we're not just talking about assets and fixtures.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, it's a good question. No, it's a good- Well, I remember having that discussion now, and I don't know if it was it in the context of the CIP or in the context of,
I think it was
looking at the
budget.
budget.
I think it was budget, because you guys were on, so it would have been.
Might have been before.
No,
We
it was
also-
budget when you guys were on, and I think we talked about, well, we should do that sooner in the process if we're interested in doing anything. Because by the time the budget's in front of us in December,
It's too
Yeah.
late.
and I don't even know exactly what direction it should go, but I do think it's something that we should be aware of and see if there is something that makes sense.
Well, I think what you could do is authorize me to bring back something, some ideas back to council when it, with this regards. I mean, like I said, we've had preliminary discussions about, right, talking about ideas about what could happen at Pete's Run and Hoyt Street, but we've never had any sort of plan put together. So I can perhaps bring Housing North to talk about options to city council about what could happen in.
Yeah.
That's a good
Very-
idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
I have some specific questions about stuff that's already on the list.
Oh.
This first one's for Kyle. I'm assuming that the police vehicle is for a replacing one we already have.
That's correct. We're not adding any, we currently have 4. And I have them on a rotation schedule.
Okay.
2024, we're not getting a new one right this year. And in 2027, we're not getting the new one, but we're putting a lot of miles on it. So we're just trying to replace them. And that is just a replacement for
Okay,
an existing one. Well, 4 does us great.
okay. And the new entrance doors, I'm assuming we're not talking about the front door. We're talking about the doors on the side.
No, we're talking about the front and the back door there, but if you look at them, we just had to get, I can't think of it's the door guy. He had to come, it's basically sawzall, because it's heaving, it's rusted. And so he had to sawzall the metal plate because it was heaving, it wasn't closed. Both sides, the east and west doors are rusting quite bad, so they need to be replaced.
Okay.
They're junk.
I think that's.
It's
okay.
entrance doors. We talked about it, there's some of that maintenance cost that we've got to look at down the road, like roofs, carpet,
Sure,
and stuff like that. And these doors, we need a new door eventually.
okay.
Does that make sense? Or do you have any questions?
It does, that does. I just wanted to understand it. Okay, Victor, I asked you this before. The replace water sewer pipes from Judd to Zoll, which street was that?
Bay.
Bay Street, okay. And the next line item on here, replace water sewer pipes from on State Street from Summit to M119.
That's the project we talked about the last. council.
Right.
Okay, I recall that.
The planning commission is gonna have a discussion about
Okay,
East Bluff, whether or not keep it 2-way, 1-way.
And it had to do also with the road waffling.
Yes.
I recall that part. Yes, I remember.
Waffle.
But was there, as I recall, and maybe Lucas can answer that, if he's still on the call, it seems to me that we had some discussion about whether I got the impression from Lucas that the whole all of State, all the way up to Lake really needed to be done.
I don't know, Lucas, if you're there to respond to that. I don't know if you heard the question.
Yeah, the water would definitely need to be replaced all the way to Lake Street. It's the same age. It was installed in 1955, and we've had some failures on that section. Now,
That's what I
most of
thought.
the failures were on the north end of that, so we have new sections, small sections, but this section is first based on the waffling.
Okay, So
Not
we
the
don't
very
have
old infrastructure.
okay, but we haven't replaced all of it from Summit to Lake, correct? So that still needs to be done in the future at some time?
Correct.
Okay, but I don't see.
It's just, it hasn't made the list for
Okay, just
The next
hasn't
6
made the
years.
list
Yeah.
yet. Okay. Okay.
But if Lucas thinks it needs to happen sooner, we can talk about that, but.
Okay.
I have a question more on just like, I don't know. When we talk about this, like for the next year and like we look at what we had on the CIP, can you do a thing that's like ongoing, completed,
Yep.
not necessary? That would be really helpful, I
Like an
think.
implementation matrix.
Yeah.
Couple of simple questions. Kathy, you have more?
I'd be curious to know what the naturescape. Do you have any specifics on that for the City Hall Deer
It's a
Park
dream.
area?
It's a dream.
It's
Yeah.
just a dream right now.
It's a dream?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's,
That the Indian Town Park improvements is probably a dream, maybe.
Well, there could be some people to work with there, like, for that, for donations.
And I think that a lot of the parks projects, we just know that we need to do something there, but we don't have plans necessarily until we have the money. Like, there's not really a sense in making a plan if we don't have the funds to do something.
Yes, for example, a good one is at Kiwanis Park. We knew we had funds coming for that, so. And we also knew we had to do something there, so then we put the plans together.
okay.
Can you tell me why we are dropping the community garden? That was one I think that was on there to drop.
Parks board.
I think that there's just other priorities.
I've been
as far
approached
as-
by several people about it
I think
recently.
that's a part of the naturescape dream.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think that like the bathrooms at the
Oh,
beach
yeah.
are a higher
Yeah.
priority, and so I think that that was kind of why it got dropped, is because there are so many other projects that cost money that we need to do.
I just had the people that support the community garden pay for it in Petoskey are willing to pay for one here, but they need a place to do it. So just food for thought, because they came up to me and said, why is it being dropped? You know, we've talked about it, now it's gone.
So parks for it.
Well, I think they talked to Parks and were told they were gonna hear from them and didn't. So it's just a reminder that I think, you know, if somebody's really interested in having to do that, it might be something else. I have two questions, just because I don't remember what the Blackbird renovations.
So since early 2000s, the Blackbird Museum.
Right.
When we had the Blackbird Committee, Blackbird Society, I don't know what it was a city committee, and they had been putting plans together and ideas to renovate the displays and the infrastructure inside the building for showcasing artifacts and historical items. And so part of working with the Historical Society, as they are, have a staff member there, they are cataloging everything, they are looking into plans, and this is what, you know, what we're getting for partnering with them is looking at plans to do that. So the costs to do that are roughly, when we looked at it a couple of years ago, about $150,000. Could be less or more depending
So
on.
that was mostly indoor renovation.
Indoor, yeah, we don't really have any plans for outdoor, and that's also one of those placeholders where, well, we can talk about this in budget season, but we talked about potentially rolling in the Blackbird Museum fund into general fund.
Yes, I remember that.
And then putting this as a general fund item. Okay, we had about $100,000 that we borrowed from the Blackbird fund for the general. Fund. So.
And then the only other one, the Cozaquat Park Playground, I think it's 150, I don't have. We just are doing some things there right now, right?
We added old equipment.
Yeah, so Cozaquat, what happened with Cozaquat Park is some of the old equipment from the beach was put at Cozaquat Park, so we don't need that. So we eliminate Cozaquat Park for playground, but then Kiwanis Park was added, the playground equipment there to eventually be replaced.
Switch there.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, thank you.
And I think real quick, back to the community garden, I don't think, we're only talking through 2030. And I think that the removal was because we don't have a location that we know that that's where we want it. Because we have to decide what we want in each of our parks before we can say, yes, this would be the best spot for a community garden. And so I think that's mostly why it got kind of bumped.
Is it in the, do you know, I don't recall, I'm putting Jamie on the spot here, but do you know if it's in the Parks Master Plan, the community garden?
I think it might.
Yeah, so if it's in the Parks Plan, at least, you know, it can be discussed, and if a spot in town is decided, oh, that'd be a great spot for community garden in the future, like next year or the year after, then it can be added to the CIP, right?
If you had a donor come to you though, say, hey, I'm ready within the next,
Right.
I'm ready within the next couple of years, I would imagine that would
You'd have to
spur Parks Board to,
put
well,
ourselves in
let's
here.
Well,
bring it up.
I encourage these people to come and talk to parks.
I would say if
Say
they
it's
show
still
up,
An open item, you should come.
As Michael said, that same exact reason happened with our skate park. We never had the skate park redo as something on our agenda until donors, let's fundraise to do something there, and we added it to our CIP.
Sometimes.
I just want to be able to answer. that. Yeah, so that's fine.
well, and I think to encouraging them to actually show up at the meeting and not just go through Rachel, because we have a lot going on and a lot on our agendas all the time that she can't always put something on the agenda.
Yeah.
We have
I'll
other
just tell them to
priorities.
come to public
Yeah.
comment at the meeting. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Jamie.
So 2 things so far I have here are, talk about housing and then implementation matrix for when I do the plan. Any other thoughts on projects or anything? I mean, this is why we usually have a policy team, because staff.
No, that's good, but no, I like this. It's thinking.
Public comment. The next item is appointing student board members. We did have applicants, and I discussed with staff members for each of these boards, as well as the board chairs, to decide who should, to recommend to council who should serve on which boards. Yeah. So we have, the recommendation we have here is Lizzie Bassett for the DDA, Henry Frizzell for the Tree Advisory Board, Sophia Summers returning for the Parks Board, and Anika. Anika, yeah. Wanzi for the Planning Commission. And we're happy that we have 4 students, yeah, 4.
Oh, sorry.
If you're okay with it, I know you guys have applications.
I think it's good.
I'm glad we have.
And some of the comments we received from staff were to try to hold some of the student members a little more accountable for attending meetings more regularly. What we tend to happen is students are involved in a lot of different activities, and sometimes they only make 2 or 3 meetings a year, so we want to try to find a way to encourage them to still serve and participate. And it's kind of hard, obviously, for some meeting times. Some meeting times are easier, 12 o'clock noon tends to work good for the tree board. She always usually makes it to the meetings. But anyway, so that's just something we kind of a little discussion about, is just maybe for the next year, find a way to maybe have before the application process is have them check a box saying, yes, I can commit to these times. Of course, sometimes in September, they don't know what their extracurriculars are going to be and what time there's going to be matches and events going on. So it's easier said than done, but we appreciate them being on here, but they also need to be able to take something away from it if they're going to put it on their resume, not just say that they served on the board but didn't show up. So
Or real quick, a little feedback from 2 people that I know served last year. They both kind of felt like they didn't know what their duties were. And I think that if they had like some kind of small task that they could have to participate, or some kind of thing, I don't know, so that they know why they're there.
Sort of like training.
Orientation,
Yeah.
some kind of something.
Well, and if
Make
they
it
were
right
on the,
minutes.
if they were.
I
on
mean,
the-
they would be happy
to the
to.
minutes. If they were on the agenda too, like the student report on, so I don't know, for DDA when they help plant the flowers or whatever. Some task that you could give them. I think
And
you're right.
yeah, like
Jamie.
Sophia was helping a little bit with like social media post ideas, and she helps get all of our volunteers, and she did a lot to help, and I just think that they like feeling accountable for something.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, and we could always do more to try to encourage them to speak up at meetings. Sometimes they're in a room with adults and they feel, there's some serious issues being discussed and they're stay quiet, but finding ways to encourage them to participate. That's why they're on the board, is not just to do those small tasks, which are good, but also to share their opinion on these important matters, so.
It's a lot to get up to date too, and you just show up.
Victor,
Yeah.
do you meet with the four of them together?
Not together, but
Um,
individually, we have.
Okay, you do meet with them and talk about their roles.
Or at least the staff, whoever the board, the staff member for that board is, will meet with them.
Okay, okay, good.
Can I just
Yeah.
comment on that, like the DDA? Becky is developing an orientation program, because we didn't have one.
Yeah.
And that would be very helpful for all of us, and I know I was a new board member, and I sat there most of the time like, what the heck are they talking about? So we are working on that.
Awesome.
And that is also what you're saying, that's part of our boards and training. Boards and commissions training packet that we approved a couple meetings ago, I believe, was finding ways to not just train, but get our members more up to date with what's happening. Because as Gail said, you can jump into a meeting and even on council, right? We're talking about projects that have been discussed for 3-4 years, right? And so you gotta, familiarize yourself. It takes a lot sometimes. So what we just really need is did we do the motion? Motion.
But I'll make the motion that we approve the 4 children.
I will second.
Young
Young children.
I think this one we can do it all in favor. There's no-
All in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excuse me.
Okay, some updates. Letters have been sent to voters informing them about the zoning repeal ballot question. I think all of them should have those letters by the end of this week, all the voters. In regards to the substation agreement, we are, Attorney Joanne has been working very diligently with our electrical engineer, Michael McGee, as well as Joe and Gil from Benchmark to finalize this draft agreement. We ship that over to the Everard, so hopefully our goal is to have something to council on October 7th. That's our goal, for council to review and approve. If that's, council's direction, and if the Everard's agreement as well, so. The newsletter had, of course, several different developments, updates. We did have a successful Arbor Day. Thanks, Matt, for grilling and hot dogs, and thanks for the tree board volunteers coming out and taking part, as well as the non-tree board volunteers. We had some high school students too, I believe. It was great. I think Matt went over 50 hot dogs. He grilled. 50, yeah. So gave away all our seedling trees. It was good. There was Eric Hemingway did a little half an hour talk about trees and birds and nature, which was really good. We did have the library director read a book for story time to kids, so it was nice. We are, I think next week or the week after, the parks will begin interviews for the parks maintenance position. So we do that. We have a handful of applicants for that, so we're looking forward to having someone in that position. Fall Fest is coming to the weekend of October fifth. It is October fifth, Saturday. So that's what the Parks Board discussed. The Bluff Stability Committee is meeting this Wednesday, but they had their last meeting in August. They had a public input session on edits or recommendations about the draft best guideline that they're going to recommend to City Council. So City Council will probably see something with regards from the Bluff Stability Committee in October sometime. The DDA again discussed their 3rd Street lighting project. Discussed downtown sidewalk, snow removal. As we came to council before that, the parks position could also be used, new parks position for snow blowing sidewalks in the wintertime. So that would be a joint kind of effort. Well, it'd be a parks position, but in the wintertime, it could be used by DDA. It could be used by DDA for that. And then the RRC just finalized a draft economic development strategy that will go to the DDA for review and input, as well as the planning commission before it comes to council for review. I think the RRC committee probably spent about 6 months working on that. So I think it's a pretty good project, a good product for most communities that do economic development strategies. Figured out to have a consultant do the work for them, but we slowly worked on it ourselves. I think we had a good discussions, at least, and Jamie's on there. We had a lot of good discussions. I know Karen attends those too as a public. But yeah, and then as per usual, many of my meetings are usually MMEA and MPPA electric meetings, and pretty much standard run-of-the-mill meetings for those. Not a whole lot going on. There is an MMEA conference in Port Huron that I'll be going to on October 2nd, 3rd. Any questions about goings on? The next meeting's October 7th in 3 weeks. Yeah, I think it's 3 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
3 weeks, yeah.
Okay, any new or old business?
Oh, new or old business. Yes, you should. The chamber did request that whether or not to put the closure of State Street on the October 7th agenda. I talked to Matt about it originally, and Matt, you can probably speak for yourself, but the concern was he thought it might be better to have, because he has to recuse himself, and he's going to be off as mayor. That'd be better to have a full, at least potentially, 4 members or 5 discussing the issue, as opposed to 3 council members. But you heard from the Chamber Foundation also saying that they would like the same council to decide it. So.
That Jamie and I have to lose ourselves
Okay,
from the voting. We
got
can
it.
discuss it, but not the voting, but, so I thought it would be better to do it when you have 4 voting members instead of 3. Oh, that's.
I got their asking for ahead of time, that's before that.
So I think for October.
So it is going on October 7th?
No, I think it would be up to council, because usually the mayor and.
Oh, so this is.
For you to decide whether or not. Well, your business.
So the only way to do it, I mean, with the new council is you have to wait till like mid-November.
Why are they in such a hurry to have?
There's no reason.
Because they think it'll be easier to keep the street closed with 3 votes. So
Oh, that's a particularly good reason.
I mean, the reason they stated here was because they want the same council.
yeah,
They want the same 3 members. That's what they.
It's just 3 instead of potentially 5, and I don't know that that's
That's
necessarily
effectively
fair.
something for next summer, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
So
But they won't put that schedule out until,
spring.
I don't see any point in doing it right away then, frankly.
I would think it would make a lot more sense to wait until the full council.
Yep.
Or the potential that the full council can do. I guess we don't know for sure who's gonna do it.
Correct.
But
I mean, you at least have 4 people to
Yeah.
vote on it.
so what do you need us to do?
Well, if a council, I think the charter says if 2 council members want something on the agenda, then can. I don't know if it's a charter, I think, or I just know if two council members can call a special meeting for a topic, so. If there's two council members that really want it on the agenda in October, I would say that we put it on there, but if you're all happy with it, waiting until after. The election sometime, or when they apply for. The public event on public property, that's, yep.
They don't apply until like April, so.
Yeah, that's a spring. kind of
Yeah.
Spring, so.
Well, I think we could say to them that we would plan to put it on first thing in the new year.
Yeah.
In January, I mean, however you guys keep track of what goes on agendas. So I think that would be plenty of time.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of just. You know, I think it'd be better to have a full council.
All right.
Okay.
There's nothing else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you for coming.
It's so good.
Yeah.